Okay, we're going to take a look at an old SPI classic. It's 1812, the campaign of Napoleon in Russia, and it was designed by John Young and Philip Urbains in 1972. Now, the copy of the game I have is in, well, used condition, you might say. I've had it for quite a while, and it is an old classic. It's one of my favorite games. It's hopelessly dated by today's standards, perhaps graphically wise and maybe even rules wise, but it's still a very fine simulation. And I'm going to show you the board and the pieces and some of the reasons why I like it. Now, my particular copy is missing the cover sheet. This is just a cover sheet I made up, and you can see that's what the actual cover sheet of the game was like. So I've kind of upgraded some of the components to this game too, and we're going to take a look at those. Now, SPI did something very peculiar back in 1972 with this game. They included in the box two distinct games. There's a hexagon grid version and an area version. So for the time being, we're going to discard this hexagon grid version, and we're going to concentrate on the area version, which is the one I like a bit better. They're very similar in many aspects, and in some particulars they're quite different. So as you can see, the board is, well, it's par for the course for the time. Doesn't use a lot of colors. It's not a very pretty thing, but I can attest to the fact that for its time it's a very good game. So let's take a look at some of the charts, and then we'll get to the counters. The combat results table was complicated for the time, and even today I find it a little bit difficult to get your head around. It's based on percentages, and well, I'm not very good at math, but anyway, you get the idea of the table. You got, I mean, it's like odds, but not quite. And you've got defender eliminated, attacker eliminated, half exchanges, things like that. So it's a very unforgiving combat results table. And associated with it is the pursuit table, which we'll take a look at. The pursuit table became important whenever you won a large battle and you had more cavalry than the opponent. If you did, you could roll on this pursuit table and hopefully destroy more units in the battle. Here we have the sequence of play. Russians played first, and one of the most important phases was this attrition phase, where each side just randomly rolled on the die to see how many cores left the map. And that could be brutal, depending on what time it was. The French moved after, then you had a supply interphase, where both units had to be in supply after all the holocaust of movement and attrition. It's a very brutal on-off switch, black and white game. There's no shades of gray. So in that sense, it's simple, but you know, for the time, 1972, it was a pretty innovative design at the time. Of course, the beloved unsupplied chart. If you were unfortunate enough to be unsupplied, you had to roll on this table, and you can see, even from game turns 1 through 8, if you roll a 4, 5, or 6, you're going to lose an entire core. So it was a very unforgiving game for being unsupplied. You definitely wanted to be in supply if you could. Original counters were perfectly serviceable, but I liked the game enough that I decided to make my own larger counters. There's an example of one of them there, and you can see, compared to the size, they're quite a bit larger, and I don't know, I just preferred larger counters, but you can certainly play the game with the counters that come with it. The counters were just straightforward symbols of core, but for the game they were perfectly functional. Okay, there's an example of the leader counters. They were very, very simple, as you can see, just having the general's name and a letter designation and a number. Again, they were the standard half-inch size, but I kind of wanted to upgrade this thing, so I kind of went and made my own counters, and I think you'll agree that those look a little bit better with portraits of the leader. Again, you don't need to replace the counters for this very fine game. It's just that this particular game happens to be one of my favorites, so I decided to upgrade it. But that's the leader counters in 1812. Okay, the leader values were also painted with a very broad brush. So we have the best leader on the board, Napoleon, rated 3, Kutuzov's rated 2, and the lesser leaders were rated 1. So you didn't have a lot of variation between leader abilities. Again, this is a game designed in 1972 when leadership was just kind of just coming into war games. But it is what it is. One of the things I really liked about this game was the introduction of these tactical chits. Now let's say, for example, Kutuzov and Napoleon got into a big battle here around Mozire. Napoleon, in this case, attacking with 5 corps and Kutuzov defending with 6 corps. Not a situation you'd want to have happen in the game, but let's say it could happen. What you'd then do is the attacker would pick one of these 8 tactical chits, and the defender would pick one of these 8 tactical chits. And you'd cross-hatch them on a table over here, and that would modify the combat result. Now, Avalon Hill was doing the same thing with 1776 with cards, but that was done in, 1975, I think, for the bicentennial. But SPI had already pioneered this little tactical system back in 72, and it was really neat and added a lot of flavor to the game. So you just didn't add up combat factors, roll a die, and get a result. You actually had some influence on the battle, and you tried to outthink your opponent by picking one of these tactical chits and getting a better chit over your opponent. Now, a cynical person could say, well, that was just guesswork, but, well, you had to play the game. But no, there was a lot of psychology in this thing, too. Now, us being of the card generation, I decided to upgrade these, too. I'll show you what I've done. Okay, and there you have my the cards I made up, which I mounted on good, thick cardboard, to replace these little wee chits. Like I said, we're of the card-driven game generation now, and these cards are just more fun to hold in your hand and fight with than you know, these little half-inch chits. So again, let's it's an upgrade for good old 1812. Now I won't say much more about the game itself. It's just one of those old classic SPI games that you have to play to really understand the enjoyment of it all. Generally, of course, Napoleon's going to be advancing on Moscow from the west. In the game, you're going to want to spread out your forces wherever possible, because that way you keep your attrition losses down, and then you'd concentrate for the big battle. But you concentrate for the battle, you tend to take more attrition. So it was a classic trading space for time game, plus battling the elements and the randomness of the die roll. Now, I haven't got into the depots and how they're created, and the whole supply system is a game in itself. All I can say is that 1812, the area version of Napoleon in Russia, is one of my favorite games, even though it's hopelessly dated. But you know what? A good game is a good game. Now, I've seen some negative comments about it on the Geek and stuff, but, well, that's too bad, because I like it. And I'll post this video, and maybe I'll do an overview of the hexagon grid version of the game. And I might even do a play-by-play of this game yet. I haven't decided. We'll see how much interest there is. Like I said, this is an old game, 1972. I guess it's almost in the collector status now and hard to find. But 1812, Campaign of Napoleon in Russia, area version, quite a nice game. Thank you for watching.